Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to Chattering with Nicholas Vince. In a few moments, I'm going to be shout-outs, which are basically both to do with Hex Studios, a Scottish-based production company. Firstly, to Kate Shenton's Netflix and Kill, the web series. The first 3 episodes, which are only 3 minutes each, but just wonderfully funny. Those are now on the Hex Studios YouTube channel, and also just to thank them, because I was filming with them last week. I was up in Scotland filming a wrap-around section for the anthology film For We Are Many. I'd also have to give a shout out to Glasgow Film Club, because for screening Hellraiser, had great fun there on Monday night, along with Simon Bamford and Stuart Conran. And obviously next week, just remind you, if we could all do it technically, the show is going to be there's an additional show being broadcast on Saturday from the Liverpool Horror Festival, which is run by Liverpool Horror Club. So I got Lawrence Harvey from Centipede 2 and 3, Human Centipede 2 and 3, and author Ramsey Campbell. They are going to be joining me, so we'll be able to record it if we can't broadcast live, but we're going to be broadcasting about between 3 and 3:30 in the afternoon. So we'll, usual notifications will go up when it happens. Right then, I can introduce Johnny now. Hi, Johnny.
Hi, Nicholas. Thanks for appreciate you putting me on the show. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, welcome. So we're going to talk about your film, which is going to be screening at FrightFest, which is await further instructions. So let's start with that. Now, you didn't write this, you direct. It was written by Gavin Williams, is that right?
That's right, yes.
And was this your first time directing somebody else's script?
Yes, it was. Apart from short films, it was my first feature. Was my second feature, but my first time directing another person's script, which I didn't originate, but I was involved with the scripting stage at a later stage when I came on board. But yeah, it was. So it was the first film I did. I co-wrote that, and also came up, sort of created the idea for it as well. That disappeared. So yeah, it was first time in that respect, which is fun.
Okay, so what was, because you mentioned you co-wrote your film that disappeared, which is your first feature film.
Yes.
How different a beast did you find it, because you were not just directing, you were directing rather than writing?
Well, I mean, in terms of what, for await further instructions, or for
await further instructions? Yeah, for await further instructions.
It's different because obviously you are coming on board a pre-existing product already, although it changed not a great deal from the draft I read, but it did change because I came in and gave notes and feedback, and I just sort of put my sort of mark on the film as much as I could. And I think it was different because you are, in a way, you obviously take on the project because you like what's there, obviously, so you don't want to change too much of it either. That's really important. So you have to be kind of careful of that, but at the same time, you do need to come in and be sort of bold enough to say, right, this works, that doesn't work, and try and change it as well, and try and steer it in the direction you want to take it in terms of how you're going to make it. So in that sense, it was a different beast in that way, because whereas the first film I did, I co-wrote it, and I kind of put a lot of my sort of stamp or mark on the, this writing stage. So I could, create scenes that I wanted. I thought that's a cool way of shooting it. Whereas this had scenes in there already. So you can't really, unless you change it for the sake of it, then if it's working, it's working. You don't want to go and start meddling with something that's slightly complex in the sense of plot and stuff. So yeah, so it was a different beast entirely, but I actually enjoyed it because I could go in and say, okay, well, you can see it more objectively, I guess, as well, because if it's your own material, then I think you can't see the flaws or the faults that, if there are any in the script. So I think in that way, I could see that, I could see through that, which was actually pretty good. And I enjoyed that process, to be honest. I enjoyed coming in as a clean set of eyes and fresh set of eyes and saying, right, this is how I want to do it, and this is what needs fixing, or this doesn't work, and things like that, really, which you can do if you're not so close to the material to begin with. So yeah, it was different. It was a different, I guess you're using a different muscle in a way, directing muscle as well.
Right.
So that was also a learning curve for me, learning experience. But at the same time, you don't want to start changing too much either, because it's something it's the first response, and you get something, you say, this is great, this works, but you have to be careful not to get and start to rip it apart either, which can happen, and that's when it leads to bad films. So,
yeah.
So yeah.
That's really interesting. And how long was your pre-production period in that case?
Well, actually, pre-production, because when I came on board, there was sort of had financing. It was like half the financing. It was quite small. The budget was ridiculously tiny for what, in the end, what we had in the end was a different set of financiers. The budget was bigger, but that was when I first came on board, and that's when we almost were going to get made, and then never happened. And then we got sort of that financing fell, and then we spent a couple more years of looking for money. You know, the producer as well were looking for money, and so it was a couple of years. But I guess in terms of the actual pre-production, in the sense, I guess for me, boarding the project to being first day on set was probably about 2000 and 4 years. So 4 years.
Wow.
The actual pre-production process, because obviously I'm going to say 4 years. I was dipping in and out every few months when things got closer. I thought, right, let's jump into it and start doing some mood boards and start creating some image books and look books and things like that. So then it didn't happen, and then went back, then sort of not shelved it, but then went on to other projects. But when we finally got the sort of green light on it, I guess pre-production itself was probably about on and off about nearly a year, because we knew it was going to happen, and then we had to wait for a studio slot to open up. So I knew I had almost a year to kind of prep for that mentally, and there was a lot of preparation in terms of visual effects and which is great in a way, because then I could actually spend that time thinking and experimenting and going off and finding my concept artists and creature design, all that sort of stuff. And I think that was good in a way. So yeah, it was almost a year of pre-production really, but not full-time basis. I think full-time was about 4 or 5 months. We had quite a long process. Again, sets being built. Again, we had that bit of that luxury because the studio was free. So we could build the sets and then come into them and work on the stages and stuff like that. So it's quite an unusual prep process, but that gave me the time to really, sort of hone the effects and get them right and play around with stuff that we hadn't seen before on screen and be able to see if it works or it doesn't work. So there was a lot of that going on as well. So which is good, unusual. So
yeah, I was going to say, where did you film it?
Up in just outside of Yorkshire, outside of York, kind of between Hull and York, I guess it was, sort of on the borders. We shot in tiny little it's called green screen production at the time, and then there was a tiny little sort of studio with 3 stages in the middle of nowhere. It used to be an old pig farm, then became a film school, and then it was bought out and became a film studio basically, which we stayed on the premises, and we I lived on the premises for months, lived there and ate there and slept there and the whole lot, and worked there and never left. So until we finished shooting. And
so how long was the shoot?
5 weeks, just under 5 weeks. It wasn't very long, the shoot, but it was a lot of prep on it and it was about just under 5 weeks. So yeah, that's what it took. And
you've got an amazing cast as well. How did you, was there anything special you did to get your amazing cast, or was it just the usual?
Well, we had a really good casting director, Manuel Puro, who did things like Moon and stuff like that. So he's a really good, he knows a lot of people, he knew a lot of agents as well. So that obviously helped a lot. And then it was pretty much just I think people were, because it was one of these scripts, if you receive the script, because a lot of it is, especially the whole end sequence, I can't talk about it, unfortunately. You'd have to see it to know what I'm talking about. But a lot of that, when you get it as an actor, you think, what the hell's going on here? How is this going to work? And is it going to work even? So I think some of the actors just sort of responded. I mean, I had to talk to them and explain how it was going to be done and sort of reassure them. And so a lot of that was going on as well, because it's not an easy read, especially the last sequence. And also being stuck in a house with 7 characters, it's also, if you're yourself in it. But I mean, it's really about how is this going to work and how is the dynamic going to work with the family. So I think a lot of it was just going on trust. And also it did help, because my first film did pretty well, The Disappeared, and I had an amazing cast on that, absolutely amazing. So that obviously helped, and the agents knew me from that as well. So like David Bradley, for example, was with, I think it's United, one of the agents, the same agent as Harry Treadaway, who was in my first film, and there was a lot of recommendations came from that side. So that helped as well to attract people like David, and David had heard good things about working with me and, our first film. So that was also a big help as well. So it does help sometimes,
Well, I'm sorry, perhaps I should have said earlier, but ask you to give it a very brief outline of what the film is about. And yeah, without obviously giving anything away, but just the setup. What's the setup for the film?
Okay, it's set up in Christmas. It's Nick and his girlfriend Angie, she's of sort of Indian sort of extraction, British Indian extraction. She insists to bring Nick, the boyfriend, to meet the family for the first time, and they live in some unspecified little town somewhere in England. And so he brings them, you know, Christmas Eve, and they sort of, you know, Dad's annoyed, he hasn't been there for years. He avoids the family, doesn't get on with them. It's very different. Nick's a lot more forward-thinking and forward-looking, whereas the family a little bit more sort of backward and sort of bit sort of, you know, they have never seen the world, they've experienced the world. So of course he brings them across, and the first night some of the family members turn on Angie. You know, there's a lot of sort of, you know, ethnic sort of jibes going on about you being, you know, foreign. There's lots of things, granddad especially, and sister. It's just a lot of ignorance happening. And then of course big argument kicks off Christmas Eve. They can't leave that night because they've drunk too much. They agree the following morning, Christmas Day, they're going to wake up and leave early first thing. So they do wake up, go downstairs, sort of, you know, tiptoe downstairs, and they discover that the front door, there's this sort of black metallic-y sort of substance or barrier on the door. And then they look around the house, the whole house has been sealed shut by this black material. We don't know what it is. And they think straight away, the family start to think, is it a government thing that's, you know, they put up the government to seal us, you know, is it chemical attack, is it terrorist attack, is there something going on outside, industrial, anything? And of course the TV then sort of throws up a message, this green kind of acidic text says, stay indoors and await further instructions. And then, so they're stuck in the house. Imagine that, the worst scenario. They're stuck in this house with this family that don't get on, and Nick, you know, just can't stand any of them, and except his mother. He got on with his mother. But so of course, over the course of the film, the TV starts to throw up further messages and just tells them to do horrible things to each other. So of course, they start to internally implode. And then obviously when we start to get to the sort of third act, a lot more stuff gets
right
about what this is and what's going on. So, and that's when I can't give away anymore. But yeah, it's about this.
Yeah.
Just imagine, you know, taking a family, you know, families fight at the, you know, the best of times at Christmas. Imagine taking that, sticking them in this house, a family never get on to begin with, and just taking that to sort of level 10, you know, and this, that's pretty much all I can say at this stage. But yeah.
Sure.
Christmas hell.
Christmas.
Hardly, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like being snowed in at Christmas with your worst. Yeah.
Yeah, but now you're sort of locked in.
Yeah. And what was your biggest? Oh, sorry, when did you actually film? When
we shot at the end of 2015, and we spent a good deal of time on the effects. There's a hell of a lot of effects in this, visual effects, and I mean, there's most of it was created. I'll go into that in a minute. But a lot of the effects are prosthetics and animatronics and puppets and all sorts of stuff. And CG only came in to kind of clean up shots and take away wires and remove puppeteers and things like that. So we shot it in that period. And then, of course, again, with the company that we're with, they own the effects house, which are brilliant, the guys there. And of course, we had to wait for them to finish other projects before we could join the queue of, you know, coming in to doing the effects. So that's why it took so long to actually finish the effects. And plus, we had nearly 500 visual effect shots in it, which is a hell of a lot for a low budget film. So yeah, so imagine the time constraints on that. So the quality, obviously, you have to be very, very patient. So unless you're a studio film, you can't go, come on, guys, get on with it quickly. It doesn't work. So
that, I mean, that is extraordinary, isn't it? That's huge. That really is.
But it's not. I mean, nothing's like, apart from the very, very end shot, everything is, whatever you see on screen is actually there. It exists in the flesh. It's practical, which was great, you know, to do that. But of course, there's a lot of cleanup work required as well. So that's the big part of it. There's a lot of, I think we sent a lot of shots to China where they did a lot of the kind of wire removal and stuff like that, which just takes forever. And you need a lot of men and women power to kind of do that. And that's what we needed, those people out there to, and it's cheaper to do that than using and the guys that are actually here did all the more creative and the kind of bigger shots they worked on, which is fine, and they use them a lot, so it worked really well. So
okay, this is fascinating. That, you know, that is this the combination of practical and CGI and so on. So so when you're on the set, and obviously it's taken a long time to do CGI, what was the biggest challenge of this movie then?
Well, I think time. It's probably, you've heard that a million times, but it's just time to try and, you know, try not to lose quality. I think that's the key, because I've seen so many of these types of films where, you know, it looks cheap, it doesn't work because they've obviously run out of time or money, whatever it is. And obviously in our case, we didn't have the money. So we had the effects guys on tap, which is great, well, to a point, but we had them on tap, so they were on set all the time working with us. But it's, a lot of it was time, because you know the whole end sequence is literally nearly 15 minutes, but that 15 minutes is all effects. It's entire sequence is effects. So trying to do that shoot that on the, you know, we spent nearly a week on that. I had to do on that, which was great, but again, not enough time. So, and my first film I did, The Disappeared, only had, 25 effect shots in it, and that was just clean up. So imagine, so I don't come from a visual effects background, so I had to learn very quickly how to get this working, and how to sort of tell the cast and the crew and what I needed to do. And you know, that was a big learning curve, but you know, I kind of found it quite natural. That I enjoyed it. It wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, so that was good in a way. And obviously trying to tell, the other thing is, okay, we had a lot of practical stuff there, obviously everything was there, especially the end, but the actor's going, what's going on? You have to explain to them and tell them this is what we're doing, and you know, don't worry, it's going to work. And they kind of just rely on you to get it to work. Unfortunately, in our case, it has worked. So, you know, so that was tough, the effects and stunts. And also, actually, another tough thing was just trying to, when you got 7 characters talking in one scene, the challenge of how to make that exciting, how to shoot that, because a lot of, especially the beginning, it's all of these characters, which you know works really well, but are talking about what's going on. And you've got to make those characters exciting and dynamic, and people, because once you lose your audience at that point, you've lost the film. So you have to absolutely get people to sort of buy into that at the very beginning, and you know, that's where good actors, of course, come in, you know, to do that. So that was quite a challenge to try and shooting that stuff. You got, you know, a day to shoot nearly 10 pages of dialogue, and trying to get that quality, because what you don't want is to have TV coverage, you know, and nothing wrong with TV coverage, but I'm talking about soap opera TV coverage, where people shoot pages and pages a day. And when you start doing that, you start to, you know, compromise the quality, compromise a lot of stuff, compromise lighting, compromise camera movement. So I was very careful about that, and that was really crucial to kind of maintain that, you know, that cinematic balance with the kind of not to lose the story and the audiences as well. So it was a tough challenge as well. So I learned very quickly about that.
And did you, you mentioned the fact that you prepared, you spent a long time, you had a chance to prepare and experiment. Did you use hand-drawn storyboards?
Yeah, I sort of started off with trying to get, I had storyboards, but then you sort of ran out of time, so I couldn't storyboard the whole thing. So obviously I ended up having storyboards, concept art, creature design, all for the end sequence. So I could use that. At least people needed that. You can't avoid that. But storyboard wise, it was sort of, I didn't bother with the dialogue, because it's just thinking, oh, I could do some storyboard for the dialogue stuff, but it's not. And most of it is dialogue at the beginning, you know. So you sort of give up on that. So you just got to try and make it work as best as possible. But only, most of the storyboards were things like, you know, those fight sequences and stunt sequences and things like that. You have to storyboard really, just to show the team really that was what you're trying to do with it. So, and also the plan really well. So,
yeah, and did you draw the storyboards yourself, or did you use?
No, my guy Steve also did the concept creature design and stuff like that. He's a brilliant creature designer. Stephen Trumbull he also storyboarded for me as well. So he sort of doubled up for that, which is great. So yeah, I can't draw, unfortunately. That's all I could do. That's all I could manage.
Right.
It can't work, you know. I mean, but you know, sometimes you need the kind of more finessed images for people to go, oh yeah, that's what's going on, you know. So especially for the end sequence. So
right. It sounds fascinating. So what was it for you? What was the most fun part of filming?
Good point. Fun part was, I guess just, I think because it's quite an exciting project to make. You know, you're creating a sort of fantasy, sci-fi, horror, and I love that. I love the idea of just getting on set and creating something that, you know, from nothing. And I love that idea. My first film obviously was more kind of drama based. It was a horror, but it was grounded in reality and stuff. Whereas this is, right, end sequence, let's just have fun with it. Let's play with our toys. And I love that. I absolutely really love doing that. And I thought it was great. And just, you know, I think fun was very stressful, obviously, but at the same time, I think just being on a set, making films is fun. I guess a lot of it was very stressful, but at the same time, fun as well. So yeah, it was all enjoyable, really. So not very useful answer, but I guess that.
No. Honest answers are very useful. I think it kind of gives people an idea of, you know, what it is you're doing. Where did you said you'd made you started with short film? Yeah, obviously you started with short films. What was your first short film?
It was terrible film called The Wake. It was fine. I mean, it was funded by, actually, it was funded by, I think it was the Arts Council at the time. They funded it. So it was fine, but it wasn't very well. I mean, it taught me a lot. I mean, it was ambitious as a gangster film, and, you know, it was great. We had amazing locations were amazing. I just learned very quickly, right, we're going to make a short film with no money, have some amazing locations. That always helps, and that worked, you know. So I got into loads of festivals, and then, so that was my first film, which is, you know, I'm not really proud of, but you have to start somewhere, don't you, I guess.
Sure.
You know. But yeah, I did that. And then my second short film was Seizures, which was a kind of much more ambitious, shot on sort of Panavision, you know, sort of big Panavision cameras. I got favors off them to use that. So that looked amazing, 35mm, and that was great. That was a sci-fi thriller with, I don't know if you knew an actor called William Hootkins at the time. He's passed away now, but he was like Chet Hawkins in Star Wars.
Right.
He was Raise the Lost Ark, the guy with the pipe at the beginning. So he was quite, you know, he also acted a lot with Richard Stanley in Hardware and Dust Devil. So he was quite a character actor. You know, I think he was a brilliant guy. And he was sort of agreed to star in it, which is fantastic. That obviously helped sell it, got into Edinburgh and stuff like that. So that was a good move up to a sort of much more ambitious project, you know. So it was kind of, that was fun. That worked well. So that obviously helped me move on. And then I did another short, which was funded by EU funding, and that was a bit more of an ambitious thriller, like a sort of Memento style thriller. And I just did that literally before I went on to The Disappeared, my first film. So that helped get my first film off the ground as well, which is great. So yeah.
Oh, cool. And did you go to film school?
Yes, I went to Westminster, University of Westminster. I went there, so I did 3 years there, film and video, basically. So that was interesting. I mean, that was fine. You know, again, I just think, you know, these days, you know, because you can learn a lot just by making films, short films. You know, I think, but it was good. It was good because, you know, getting my hands on cameras and equipment and stuff like that, which is good. But yeah, I mean, it does help. And there's some interesting film tutors there that teach you a lot. They can sometimes inspire you, sometimes they don't. So, you know, but yeah, I went to film school. So.
Right. Cool. So, Await Further Instructions has already had its world premiere. Where was that?
It was in Cinepocalypse in Chicago. It was just at the end of June. And it was a world premiere. So it was the first screening, obviously, ever, world premiere. And it was great. And, you know, it won the audience award, which is fantastic. You know, so I thought, what a relief. You know, the first screening ever, you know, I think people just really responded, because it's not just the sci-fi thriller. There's a lot of quite topical themes running through it now, with things like, you know, the whole Americans relate to, because the whole Trump thing that's going on, and they just grabbed onto that, and it sort of angered them, but in a good way for me, because they all really responded to the film, and there's a lot of cheering and whooping and sneering and stuff going on, which is great from an audience seeing that in the film. And I think so, lots of things of immigration, and obviously here it's like Brexit and stuff like that. So I think lots of people responded to that, and they're sort of looking at it as a kind of the film of now, really, which is great. So timing wise, maybe the delay helped this, which is good. So yeah. Right.
And can you remember off the top of your head when your film's screening at FrightFest?
The Sunday, at 6:30 on the 26th, I think it is. That's right. Yeah, the 6th of at the Prince Charles, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah, we have one screening at the Prince Charles at 6:30. So very excited to show it first time to, well, European crowd or British audience, you know, which is great. So. And
I think that off the. Oh yeah, no, it's the following day. Yes, it's the Sunday.
That's Sunday. Sorry, yeah, Sunday. So.
Yeah, the 26th. Brilliant. Okay, cool. I'm presumably tickets are now available via the FrightFest.
They are selling out quite well. I went online yesterday, so mostly sold now, which is good. Very exciting. So hurry up and get your tickets.
Yeah. Well, I've got a festival pass, and of course I have to wait and scrabble for all those. It's getting harder and harder each year. You get a festival pass and just think, yeah, but these independent films, I want to see it. It's really hard now. But, you know, it's great that bit films are so popular and people are turning out to support.
I think only one screening. Some people like, I prefer more. I don't mind. I just think it kind of, you show it to enough people, they'll talk about it. And if they like it, they'll respond. And then they'll wait for it to show again, or they'll tell people about it. You know, I just think sometimes you can over-screen films, you know, and I just feel like, I think it's, I mean, I'm all for one screening, to be honest. Some people aren't happy with directors, but I don't mind that. So keep them waiting for more, wanting more. So it's good.
Yes, that's always the answer. Yes, always people wanting more. Cool. All right. Well, congratulations on the audience award. That's brilliant news.
Thank you very much.
And I've seen the trailer for this, and it looks great. I mean, I love the whole concept.
Thank you. Unfortunately, it doesn't give anything away, but it's hard to talk
No,
about.
no, that's great. I think, I think you've talked about, you've given enough. And we're now going to talk about Pitch Black in a moment. Just a quick heads up, there may be spoilers during this, inevitably, just to remind people. So I asked you for your hidden horrors, and one of the ones you chose was Pitch Black.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read out the summary from IMDb, just in case people haven't seen it. So this is a science fiction movie starring Vin Diesel. It was released in 2000. A commercial transport ship and its crew are marooned on a planet full of bloodthirsty creatures that only come out to feast at night. But then they learn a month-long eclipse is about to occur. Now, when did you first see this movie?
Well, okay, funny enough, I knew nothing about this film. Okay, so I remember I'd bought myself a DVD player for the first time back in, I think it was 2000 or 99, I think it was. And because I think the DVDs were only sort of coming out then, really. I think they were sort of, yeah, it was, I remember Blu-ray obviously came out after that. But I just thought, well, then I remember I used to subscribe, I used to buy stuff from, I bought a multi-region player and I would buy stuff from Canada because it was always cheaper. There was a site in Canada that sold DVDs and, all legit stuff. And I thought, God, great, this is great. And I thought, this looks really cool. And I missed it. I can't remember even got screened at the cinemas here, to be honest. I don't think it did. Maybe it did. I can't remember.
I don't remember it. I'm sure I've seen it online or.
Yeah, because I think it was one of those films of literally, I think the DVD boom helped push it. And I just thought, let me watch this thing. And Vin Diesel wasn't really a known name. There was the only person was there was like, I think, Radha Mitchell. But she wasn't, she came from, I think it was Home Away or Neighbours or something. But anyway, so I just thought, I'll watch this. And I watched it, I thought, bloody hell, this is amazing. I was blown away. I thought everything I wanted in a film, sci-fi, pretty good good characters, great setting. I mean, if I had received a script like this on my desk, I'd be frothy at the mouth. It's, set on this ship crash lands on this planet. Every 22 years, it's got 3 suns. Every 22 years, there's a solar eclipse for a month. And then suddenly these creatures, like night creatures, which are actually pretty cool creatures as well. The effects are there's some dodgy effects in it, but overall the creatures are brilliant, And they got it, and so what a great premise and concept that is to sell it to a studio. And it made relatively low budget. I mean, I think they saying like 20 million, but I don't believe it was that much. I think it was less than that. And then it was all made in Australia, shot there on the deserts there and stuff. And I thought, brilliant, I just got so excited. I watched it. I loved it. Go, this is the kind of film I want to make now. This is and I think I was just starting off then with sort of films and stuff, and I hadn't obviously made anything then. And I was like, this is exactly the kind of film I want to make. And I loved it. Sci-fi, thriller, horror, brilliant. So I just got very excited by it. I thought, and I kept telling everyone about it, you've got to watch this film. And since then, they've made 2 sequels, I think, haven't they? So, yeah, which I saw, which are okay, but nothing like the first one. So I just got so excited by it when I saw it. And Vin Diesel was pretty damn good in it, because that was his second role. I think he did Boiler Room before then, and this was his second film. I don't know, he was in Private Ryan as well. He was in Private Ryan.
He
did Boiler Room, I think, just before then.
He done, from what I understand, I'm just reading his IMDb biography. Basically, he kind of followed the self-made. I mean, we're talking end of the 1990s. He made short films.
Okay,
which on camera, and literally, he kept on trying. He got into acting after he and a mate broke into a theater, and they were caught. And the woman just said, "Okay, listen, I will give you $20 if you turn up for rehearsals." And he kind of got into acting that way. And it's a fascinating story. His mother is an astrologer / psychologist. He doesn't know who his biological father is. His stepfather is an actor teacher as well. So there's definitely, that kind of background to it. But he kept on trying for things and just being completely knocked back because he was brought up in New York. Tried getting to Los Angeles, that didn't work. He kept on, and then I think somebody gave him a book his mother gave him a book, and I'm going to misquote the title, but basically how to make a short film for the price of a second-hand car.
Right.
And he made short films, and they got seen, and they got screened. One of them got screened at Sundance, which is how he got the Steven Spielberg saw him. And got him into Private Ryan. So yeah, this was his first This was his first proper lead role. And I think he's got a really interesting character, Vin Diesel. I like, it's just, he really is Mr. Machismo.
Yeah, he is, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he just, I mean, at that time, he just had a lot of charisma on screen as well. You could watch him, you know, that was, and you hadn't really seen anyone like him really at that time, because I think a lot of the action heroes are rather really bad actors, or just were, I think, getting too old at the time, like, you know, Arnie and Schwarzenegger, even, you know, they were just, I think even at that time, they were sort of aging, weren't they? Whereas he came in as a fresh face of that, but also he could act as well, which I think made a difference, you know, obviously. Yeah. People cast him in quality stuff, you know, which was great. So, well, nowadays, who knows? But yeah, but those days, oh, you know, he was getting interesting roles. So.
Yeah, yeah. Alan McNeil says, it had a cinema release. I remember watching it at the Cineworld. The movie is awesome. The sequels were awful, though. I'm just going to sit down and watch the sequels anyway, because the second
off, doesn't it, to some other direction, the sequel. It's like, what?
Yeah, yeah. And it's the classic thing. I mean, the great thing about Pitch Black is it's the dark. Well, you move from this world where all the color, it's got Claudia Black in it as well, who's obviously in Stargate Stargate SG-1, and
a lot of recognizable people. What's his name? The guy, the sort of what's his name? The oh god, I forgot the character's name. He was the sort of Middle Eastern guy, wasn't he? The
oh yeah, the Imam, Clark Peters.
Yeah.
The Imam, yeah.
A lot of really amazing sort of people now, character actors that appear in lots of films now, which is great. So.
It's good, but I think what I particularly liked about it, and I watched it last night and this morning, it's just such a clever idea. And it starts with really saturated colors to represent this burning thing, you know, this burning desert. As you said, I hadn't realized it had been filmed in Australia, but it makes perfect sense when you look at the yes, Radha Mitchell.
Some of the other characters, the what's her name, the woman that you mentioned, she's Australian, and then the guy with the, you know, the guy with the cigar smoking guy with the glasses, he's Australian as well. So there's a lot of Australians in there with they've maintained their accents as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just such a, I mean, it's just such a simple concept. It means it is kind of interesting because you get a lot of live, you know, footage shot with where the only light source is a blowtorch, which helps, and basically it's playing on the fear of the dark. You know, it's really, and you get away with, you can use fairly cheap effects. It seems like, I mean, this is made in 2000, and because you get the creatures, you get two eye views. You get Vin Diesel's eye, or Riddick's view.
That's right.
And I mean, what I love is just the image that he's got these shiny eyeballs.
Funny, I discovered, I forgot why he had those. At the time when I watched it, I thought, oh, is he like part of this world of creatures? Then I realized when I watched it again the other day, it's like when they was in prison, apparently somebody put those into his eyes. So there's a reason behind it. I thought, I can't remember this, and I discovered that again. I thought that's interesting. So
yeah, because so basically the idea is that, you know, he's an obnoxious, horrible murderer, convict on the ship, and that, you know, they crash land on the planet and so on. Of course, you've got all the nice guys, and you've got Riddick, who cares for nobody but himself. And they have to come to rely on this man who may or may not betray them. So you've got all those simmering tensions. But yeah, it's really good. You mentioned the creatures. I think they're great creatures.
But what's interesting, you don't see them a great deal, which is good. Like, for example, you know, when the guy drinks his whiskey, he lights the flames in his mouth, and it's a burst of light. And suddenly you see these creatures all around. I thought that's brilliant. It's almost like a couple of seconds, but you just see enough, but not too much either to get sort of go, oh, they're terrible. But obviously there's some moments when they come up closer. But they hold them back quite well, I have to say, because a lot of the dark, you're saying they play with a lot of the dark, and that's what's so great, because it's what you don't see is what works, I think, for this. You know, and I haven't seen the cinema, but I imagine the sound effects would be amazing for this. You know, so
yeah. No, I have to say, I did. You know, not knocking Vin Diesel, I loved him in XXX. I thought that was a really
that was good. Yeah, it was good in that. Yeah, he's good. He's watchable. You know, I mean, I think now he's become a little more cynical, hasn't he? A lot of his stuff he's doing, but you know,
he's done all the Drive. What is it? Drive 7. He's up to.
Yeah, it's like 8. Actually, 8 was last year, I think. So,
yeah. Which seems just, you know. I kind of feel that there's probably a lot more that he could do if somebody gave him the chance, but obviously it's working for him. So whatever is going on in his life, it's a fun movie. I think it's a fun movie. And as I say, just the way it plays with your fear of the dark and the what, and again, just portraying characters. You've got lots of different characters there. Trying to work out who's the red shirt, who's going to, obviously people die in this movie. But yeah, it's fun. It's really good. So if you haven't seen it before, I think we definitely recommend that one.
Like even Riddick's character, who's the most sort of, you think he's the worst, he could be the worst of all of them, turns out to be the most human of all of them, doesn't he, in the end? Even, what's her name, Radha Mitchell has a massive flaw. As soon as it starts off the film, it's already instantly establishes her, she's about to kill the crew at the beginning. She's gonna eject that past portion of the ship. And that was going to kill him because just to save her ass, really. I thought, what a horrible person this is going to be turned out to be. And, in a way, even Riddick wouldn't have done that, And then she obviously, she sort of redeems herself at the end, doesn't she? Sort of,
sure.
She goes back and saves them. But he tests her, he grabs her and says, he's trying to see what she's like. And then, so his character's the most human of all of them in the end. And apart from, obviously, the other character who turns out to be the girl, who think is a boy, which she's in the sequel, isn't she? Well,
yes.
Different character, different actor, but
yeah.
Go back to your point. Sorry, just about the darkness. And what I also really liked about this is because when you're shooting on a limited budget, limited location, and especially in the dark, what's really interesting, I thought was really good, is you have to be very clever with the lighting. And I think in this they were, because obviously there's only, how many sources of light can they use? And obviously, but what's really great about it, they had several different sources of light, and they had those sort of those wiry lighting up sort of tubes they had, the ones they got out. And then they had the lantern, then they had the blowtorch, and they had, then just when that goes off, you think, oh, it's becoming the same. Then suddenly, what's his name? The character, the bad guy, I forgot his name now. Cole Hauser's character.
John's Cole Hauser. I mentioned him. Yeah,
on this, like a nightstick, and it suddenly turns everything green from a different color palette. I thought that's interesting. It just keeps it fresh, I think, for that, and that's where films can go wrong with that sort of the lighting and the look of it, whereas this carries on being different at the end. It goes red, and there's different color palettes, which I really liked about it as well, which is interesting. So, and I adopted a lot of that stuff in Wait for the Instructions as well, especially when you're stuck in one house with, you can never see daylight in my film. So it's always about using practicals cleverly. So I kind of played around with that, and you'll see what I mean when you see it. But, that's really important for filmmakers to be aware of as well, I think. So it's interesting. Cole Hauser's character is, because he's your classic chiseled jawed blonde leading actor figure, and he's not. The character is turns out heroin addict, and he's the killer, and he's just everything. He's a bounty hunter, isn't he, of some sort? So
yeah. But again, really fascinating. It's just like, you kind of think, okay, he's the hero. There's something slightly off about, and then you just realize how it's a great performance, I think, because you really loathe him, and just think, oh no, you're really rooting for the bad guy, Riddick, who's the convict, who admits that he's a murderer, and so on. And what I do find interesting is, like, they take one. Speaking of the sequel for a moment, they take one line from the first film and reference it to explain a whole lot in the sequel. And the sequel has Judi Dench in it. That's
right. And the budget was just ridiculous in the sequel. You could tell they just spent a fortune on those sets.
Yeah, and the side, and
that's what's so I really like about this, is the fact that it's a very simple premise. It's basically ship crashes on this planet with these creatures that come out at night. It's pitch black for a month. You've got to get the hell off this planet, otherwise you're going to die. Great, and there's none of these pretensions about the whole. I can't remember. What was it? There's a name they had in the sequel. The place they were in.
Necromongers.
That's it. There's none of that stuff going on. I thought that's a whole different film. And I thought this is very simple, works really effectively. And it's the kind of film you can just put on anyone's in front of anyone. If they love that kind of film, they're going to absolutely get addicted to it and watch it right through to the end. But yeah, you had sort of bit of that sort of in there, but there was a bit of the sort of Riddick's history and stuff in the film, but not like the sequel. That was just it's strange.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you've got a much, what tends to happen, well, you get a really good independent film that makes a lot of money. People say, "Oh, fine, we can cash in on this. Let's make a sequel." and we'll throw an awful lot more money at it because obviously people expect more from it, in inverted commas. And this is pure space opera. The sequel is pure space opera. You know, it's much bigger value.
The third one they did, interestingly enough, tried to go back to the first one. I don't know. Did you see the third one?
I haven't seen the third one. I really do want to watch them now because it's
I think a couple of years. I mean, I won't give it away, obviously, but there's only a couple. I think about 2 or 3. I can't remember what year was it. It was maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe.
It wasn't that long ago. No, I was surprised at how. I mean, so the.
Well, it took ages because I think they didn't find, and then Vin Diesel stepped in, and because of him, it got financed. I think so. He pushed for it, but you know, I think they went back to that planet again, or they went to. I think there was some planet that was, again, it was a very simple setting, but
yeah. I mean, so basically, the first sequel came out so the first film came out in 2000. Chronicles of Riddick came out in 2004, and Riddick came out in 2013. So about 5 years ago. Okay,
so yeah, but they tried to go back to the first one in a way, trying to keep it simple with a few characters, but yeah, I mean, because he crash lands on the planet. I think that's what happens when he's escaping the second film. I think that's what it was. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's not bad. Again, I'd watch them because it's a great. I love how they have the sort of balls to be able to push the third one. Which is great. And they got it made, which is good. And the same director as well, David Toohey.
Oh yes. It's done some quite interesting stuff. Cool. All right. So if you haven't watched Pitch Black, it's a really good independent science fiction.
Yeah, film. But watch it in the dark because as soon as there's any lights on, you won't see a thing.
And that is, to draw the curtains and make sure I watched it late at night, or draw the curtains, or watch it very early this morning. You literally can't see anything on screen because as I say, they rely an awful lot on natural lighting.
Which most of it is in the dark, which hence why I call Pitch Black. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great because there is one scene where they end up in a cave and you think, and then the lights fail and think, how are you going to do it now? And it's quite clever the way they get out of it. Yeah, they do. Yeah. But it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's quite cool. Yeah, but again, it's just a different color palette. It's very clever. Cool. All right, let's move on to The Fly. Now, this is the 1986 David Cronenberg Fly. Gina Davis and John Getz.
Josh Goldblum. Not Josh Goldblum? No,
John Getz.
John Getz?
Yeah, plays the boyfriend.
No, it's Josh, isn't it?
No, I may be wrong. I do write things down wrong. You're absolutely right.
Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jeff Goldblum. Yes, beg your pardon.
Which one's in The Fly are we talking about?
It's like, sorry, I forgot to write down Jeff Goldblum.
Which is actually one of his first sort of main roles, really. I think.
Interesting. I think. I mean, he was certainly pretty young when he did it.
He was very young, yeah.
He's very ripped.
They got married. I think him and Gina Davis became an item after that. They got married, I think.
They did. Yes, absolutely. I knew that much. 1986. God, you do have to go a long way back. The Fly, Seth Brundle, Ray Bradbury Theatre, Silverado. Yeah, he's done an awful lot of TV stuff. Yeah, because he'd actually been acting. Wow.
But he wasn't famous. I think that made him famous, that role.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Which is why, I'd not really heard about it when I saw it in the film. Actually, is in Death Wish.
Oh, right. You probably just barely recognize him. Probably. Actually, he's also in, what's it called? I remember he played the doctor character in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You know, the one with, what's his name? Oh, God. The remake, I think it was. The color,
Yes, he plays Jack Bellick in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978.
That's the one, 78.
But yeah, he's mostly doing, but he was in Death Wish, the original Death Wish film.
Death Wish at all, but
as freak number 1.
Oh, I see. Okay, well that's probably why.
Yeah, that was because of course he did the tall guy, but he must have
tall guy, which I think it's after The Fly.
Oh yeah, it must have been way after that.
Yeah, they shot it here, didn't they?
They did indeed, well, because he plays the tall American actor.
Right.
And I remember
it was all right. It was an all right film. I thought it was fun, but it's sort of a fish out of water in that, wasn't it? Really, but
yeah. No, is it because he was digressing entirely. The comic artist John Bolton, did the storyboards for the famous lovemating scene.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was, yeah,
in which the wardrobe is totally destroyed, and I can't remember. Emma Thompson is playing opposite.
Emma Thompson, because again, she was quite sort of relatively unknown then as well. I think she hadn't really broken out at that point.
Yeah, but it's so. When did you first see The Fly?
Well, I saw it on VHS. I think just after a year or so after it came out of the cinema. So I never actually saw, because that's what happened. I started getting into Cronenberg a lot. I mean, I absolutely just thought, as soon as I heard his name, I thought, this guy's making The Fly. And I didn't really know I didn't know anything about The Fly. I didn't know it was a remake of an original Howard Hawks one. And then was it a third remake? I think it was. Is that right? I think there was two other versions, I think, before.
I think there's even Son of the Fly because Vincent Price. Vincent Price is in the original.
2 remakes, I believe. I could be wrong, but yeah, I saw Cronenberg. I saw his early. I saw what's it called about the dead ringers, which is absolutely fantastic. And I can't remember when Dead Ringers came. Whether I saw it before or after. I think I got addicted to Cronenberg on the back of Dead Ringers. Then as soon as I heard he made The Fly, I thought, I've got to see this film, and I just absolutely loved it. I thought, the way it was shot, I think the cinematography was beautifully sort of, I was using a lot of those reference images in my pack for Wait for Instructions, because a lot of the stuff was going on was practical effects and body horror and lots of that stuff. And I just was so addicted to that film. I loved it. And the score was Howard Shore, brilliant, big score, operatic score. It's fantastic. And this guy, I just thought, and I loved it. I just thought, wow, what a film. It's almost like when I saw Hellraiser at the time as well, obviously. Again, I didn't see it at the cinema. I saw it on VHS. And again, I thought people are making these kind of films that are quite sort of hard to watch, because it's kind of like Fly is quite violent, when bits when, he breaks his, when he's even having the arm wrestling match, he just snaps the guys. Just, wow, what a great moment, And then I just loved it. I thought this character's going from a nerd to suddenly inventing this teleportation, amazing sort of device. And then suddenly this fly gets into the pod. And then he just starts to take on the DNA of this fly. And I thought, shit, this guy's like turning into an actual fly. But I actually saw the payoff really worked. I thought, because how are you going to pull this off? And I think it was Rob Bottin who did the effect. I think did the practical effects on it. I could be wrong, but
funnily enough, I would have expected it, but that was not the name. See, full cast and crew. I'll double check, but I think it was actually somebody. Cinematography, production design, art direction, set down. The makeup department, second unit, art department. Visual effects, we've got motion control. It's not Bottin as far as I'm aware, and as far as I can see on IFC.
It's somebody quite big who did the effects, which worked really, really well. I just thought, what an amazing transformation on screen, all practical. There's no CG then, remember? CG hadn't come into effect yet.
No.
And it works. And even now, if you watch it, it holds up really well. Again, I think a lot of it is down to him and her, Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum. I just think those two characters are brilliant. And they're so convincing as well. And I just thought, what a great, it's made really well. I loved it. I watched it recently again. I just thought, and I was watching it, do my research for Wait for Instructions, and I just thought it holds up really well. It's such a well-made film. Have you seen it, obviously? Yeah,
funnily enough, I watched it this morning. I saw it when it came out at the cinema. The usual reason being,
I didn't see it at the cinema, unfortunately, but
I saw it because it was around about the time of Hellraiser.
It was just before, I think, a year before.
Yeah, it's a year before. So we were making. I suspect we were making it, which means I will have been reading Fangoria a lot at that time. And I just remember the front cover of The Fly coming out of the pod on the front cover of Fangoria, and Brundle Fly, the animatronic of Brundle Fly. Watching it again this is almost a three-hander.
Yeah, it is.
It is, literally you have Goldblum, you got Gina Davis, you got Getz, there's the really creepy boyfriend.
That's right. Who actually turns out okay in the end, doesn't he?
So yeah. And and again, it's that he's beautifully creepy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's more or less one set. It's mostly, and again, what I really admired about it, it's you are in the story within 3 minutes of the opening shot.
Mm.
They are at a big scientific convention, he's obviously chatting her up, and he's saying, you know, you want to talk to me because I'm about to change the world.
She's writing. She's a journalist, isn't she?
She's a journalist. She's a journalist, and you're just thrown into that conversation, and it's really, you know, it's like, okay, it's the classic thing. Is that, but yeah, you want to come back with me? I'm about to change the world. And literally within 5 minutes, you know everything you need to know about these characters. You know, she's the go-getter journalist, pretty good, and he's the kind of, as you say, the kind of the nerdy guy. And of course, it's classic Cronenberg because it's all about body transformation. And how recently have you seen it?
I saw it probably about 2, 3, just before I shot Await for Instructions, because I want, again, as part of my research as you do for these things, because the whole thing was the whole use of practical effects and animatronics, which we used a lot in Further Instructions. So let me see how it holds up and how it looks. And a lot of it is down to lighting. Again, you know, to make good animatronics work on screen, you have to light it really well. And again, you don't show everything. And I learned a lot from that film, I have to say, for that reason, because it's very clever the way it's lit, and it's sort of half lit in places, half the places in shadow. And it's all about not seeing the full through a picture. It's about seeing what you need to see, what you need to show an audience. And I thought that's really interesting as well, especially when he turns the fly. Because if you saw the fly in its full glory, fully lit, it looked pretty terrible, I think. But it did amazing, you know, because they showed just the right parts, and all about good editing as well, where you just show what's essential and people believe it, and it show enough of it, but don't hold it too long either, because that's, again, very crucial for films like that, because, you know, you couldn't really do a lot in those days, apart from what you see is what you get there. It's just all on screen is what was there, what existed. There's no CG, like I said before, you know, in that film, so you couldn't manipulate too much afterwards. So yeah, so I thought about 3 years ago, which, you know, I just thought holds up really well. So
it's I mean, I think, as you say, you mentioned earlier on, it's the relationship between Davis and Goldblum on stage, but also it's Goldblum's physical presence.
Well, it's the way he changes, isn't it, during the course of the film, because he starts off quite skinny and nerdy. You think, I can't be a bloody fly, he can't transform, but then he does. You start to see bits of him falling off, and he's turning strong, physically really strong. He's you know, it's incredible how he changes. I think he does do a bit of, I think he sort of buffs up a little bit during it, I think. So
yeah, I think it and of course they had gymnast stand-ins for him, because he does these amazing, but again, that was just cleverly shot. It's the one you've got 3, 4 sets throughout the entire movie, plus, you know, the external, you know, you've got
his apartment, you've got obviously the warehouse / lab.
Yes. And then you got her apartment as well. So probably 5 sets in total, including the you know, the office and so on. Oh yeah, perhaps. Yeah, half a dozen. Yeah, I suppose it
for a film like that. So
yeah, no, again, but they're small sets, you know, it's an easily reject, you know, just kind of standard sets and so on. But all the money went into the makeup effects. All the money went into the animatronic effects.
Absolutely.
You've got a huge crew, and I think it's CWI who did the effect, the company called CWI.
Toronto based, most likely. They shot it in Toronto.
Yeah, because it's Cronenberg, so it's Canadian. It's Canada based. And again, it's, as you say, it's the editing. You only get to see the animatronics when you need to. You spend some time on the animatronics, and I think. But also, it's that body horror thing of, you know, the squeezing the nail. Yeah,
horrible stuff.
And I think one of the reasons that works is because it's so gross. You're kind of only going to be watching it kind of like that anyway, because of what he's going through. But again, it's just Goldblum's realization, because he transforms into the kind of the weedy, nerdy guy, kind of nervous, shy about his work, goes through the transformation and becomes this godlike figure. You know, he's aggressive, and but it's that whole portrayal from the one. You know, he has a huge, great story arc, and it has to be said, one of the best lines in any movie, which ended up on the poster, which is, "No, be afraid, be very afraid."
I always thought that was originally from Alien. And I realized after, actually, it's not from Alien, it's from The Fly. I realized after, because that Alien was, wasn't something in space, no one can hear you scream.
Yes.
And I thought, be afraid. And I always said to people, that's from Alien. And it wasn't. Obviously, it's from The Fly, which is amazing line. It's almost like a classic tagline, isn't it?
Well, and also, and it's the moment at which it's done. Is, you know, it's like, I don't want to, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. You know, don't be scared. No, be afraid.
Be
very afraid.
Exactly.
It's perfect timing. Really, really good.
They had the sequel as well, didn't they? They did a sequel which was not, well, he wasn't in it. I think, did she stay in the sequel, Gina Davis?
Getz did, I remember, and I think
definitely did. I remember him, but I can't remember if she was in it. Was she? No, she wasn't. Was she?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, she's off doing things like Thelma and Louise.
That's right. She was so big in that.
Yeah, yeah. The Fly 2. You were talking about whether or not it had been.
I did see it, but I can't remember. Yeah, because she was.
Yeah, no. I was like, so there was the Fly. So in terms of the origin of the story, there's the original 1958 film. Then there's the Return of the Fly.
Yeah.
The Curse of the Fly, which is going to be in 1965. Keep on bizarre. Yeah, it's basically the same idea. The whole idea. If you're a regular viewer of the show, I've read the original short story by George Lungalan when I was at school, when I was a teenager. In fact, and what I remember about the short story is he spends the first couple of pages saying how much he hates the telephone and how much it is it's an invasion of his life, because it's narrated by the brother who's played by Vincent Price in the 1958 version of the film.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
And so yeah, no, it's a very cool film. Right, now we're almost at the end of the show, so I have to ask you what else you're working on. What have you got? Anything you can talk about?
Well, I can't talk too much about them, but there's a TV series I'm working on at the moment with Americans. Can't talk about it, but there's a TV series which is quite a cool horror sort of series. I'm working on 3 other feature films with other producers here. So there's quite a few things, but again, can't mention them yet because they're still under kind of negotiations and contract and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a few other features as well, and mostly in this sort of realm of genre, horror, sci-fi. So I got a couple of sci-fis, which I'm actually would love to get my teeth on a really cool sci-fi next, which is I'm looking at that as a kind of low budget, contained sci-fi, which is something I'm possibly going to be doing next. So, but I'll tell you more about them on future. But yeah, so there's always some stuff going on. So yeah, but all will be announced soon.
All be announced soon. Brilliant. Okay. In the meantime, you can await further instructions at FrightFest at the end of August. And if you're around next week, folks, I shall be here with Aisling Clark, a director and co-writer of The Devil's Doorway, which is also going to be at FrightFest. I'll be talking about that and her hidden stories, which are the ghost stories of E.F. Benson, the Spanish language version of Dracula, which was shot at the same time as Bela Lugosi's. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I've not seen the Spanish language version of it before. And we're also going to be discussing Dublin's Swan River Press, which produce really interesting genre publications as well. So please, come if you're around, please come and join me next Sunday at the same time. Johnny, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you as well. Had a great time.
Cool. All right, then, folks, thank you very much. And if I got this right, you should be able to subscribe and see things and see websites and so on at the corners of the screen. All right, then, folks, hopefully see